If a woman doesn't respect you, it doesn't start with what she says, it starts with what you silently tolerate, and the moment you realize that, your stomach drops. I'm speaking to you as a psychologist who has spent years listening to men describe the same quiet confusion. You're showing up, you're being kind, you're being available, and yet something feels off. She interrupts you. She jokes at your expense. She cancels last minute and expects you to understand. You feel yourself shrinking, second-guessing, over-explaining, and you tell yourself a comforting lie. If I just do a little more, she'll see my value. That lie is where respect dies. Respect is not something you earn by endurance. It's not a reward handed to the most patient man in the room. Respect is a response to how you experience yourself. Women don't decide to respect you after you prove your worth. They sense it before you ever speak, through the way you carry limits, time, and self-regard. When that sense is missing, attraction becomes unstable and respect quietly evaporates. Here's the part most men were never taught. Disrespect rarely shows up as cruelty. It shows up as familiarity without care. She assumes you'll wait. She assumes you'll adjust. She assumes you'll understand. And each time you do, without noticing the cost to yourself, you teach her something important, that your boundaries are flexible, negotiable, optional. Not because she's malicious, but because human beings learn how to treat us by watching what we accept. Psychologically, respect grows where there is polarity, where one person is grounded enough to hold their center even when it creates tension. When you rush to smooth every discomfort, when you sacrifice your needs to avoid losing her, your nervous system broadcasts anxiety. And anxiety does not inspire respect. It invites testing, not consciously, not cruelly, but instinctively. She pushes a little, then a little more. And you feel the imbalance before you can name it. Many men think the problem is her personality, her past, or her standards. But in clinical work, I see something more precise. The moment respect erodes is the moment a man abandons his own internal authority. When he stops trusting his reactions, when he explains away discomfort instead of listening to it. That's when the dynamic shifts. Not loudly, quietly, subtly, almost politely. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You cannot talk a woman into respecting you. You cannot logic your way there. You cannot perform your way there. Respect is not convinced. It is perceived. It emerges when your actions align with your self-worth, even when that alignment risks loss. Especially then. Before any move can change the dynamic, something deeper has to land in you. The understanding that being chosen at the cost of your dignity is not winning. That being liked while feeling small is not intimacy. And that the fear of losing her has already begun costing you yourself. This is where the real shift begins. Not with her behavior, but with the moment you stop negotiating your value internally. The one move that changes everything is not confrontation, control, or withdrawal. It's something quieter, stronger, and far more unsettling to the dynamic. You stop explaining yourself. You stop justifying your needs. You stop auditioning for understanding. And in that moment, the psychological balance begins to reset. Most men think respect is built by being reasonable, by clarifying intentions, by making sure she knows you didn't mean harm. But over-explaining is not clarity. It's a signal of insecurity. It tells her that you need her agreement in order to stand behind your own decisions. And the mind of a woman, wired to sense emotional strength, registers that immediately, not as kindness, as uncertainty. Here's what happens internally when you stop explaining. Your nervous system shifts from approval-seeking to self-trust. You make a decision and you let it stand. You don't punish, you don't lecture, you don't dramatize. You simply act in alignment with what feels right to you. That alignment is what creates gravity, and gravity is what respect orbits. For example, when she crosses a line and you calmly remove yourself instead of arguing, something powerful occurs. Her brain loses its familiar reference point. She expected reassurance, persuasion, flexibility. Instead, she encounters stillness. Not coldness, not anger, stillness. And psychologically, stillness communicates certainty. It says, I know where I stand, even if you don't. This is where many men panic. They fear that silence means loss, that stepping back means rejection. But from a psychological perspective, this move does the opposite. It reintroduces polarity. It reminds her that access to you is not guaranteed, not because you're playing games, but because you actually value your internal boundaries. Women don't respect men who are always available. They respect men who are available by choice. There's a crucial difference. Choice implies standards. Standards imply self-respect, and self-respect is contagious. It subtly invites her to rise or step away. Either outcome restores your power. Notice what this move is not. It's not ghosting. It's not punishment. It's not trying to make her miss you. Those are still approval strategies in disguise. This move is about congruence. When your words, actions, and emotional posture match, you stop leaking energy. And when energy stops leaking, people feel it. In therapy rooms, I've watched men regain respect without saying a single dramatic sentence. They simply stopped chasing clarity from someone who benefited from confusion. They stopped negotiating time with someone who treated it casually. They stopped performing emotional labor for connection that wasn't mutual. And the women noticed, always. Sometimes respect returns, sometimes it doesn't. But here's the part men never regret. The moment they stopped explaining, they felt relief. Relief is the body's signal that you're back in alignment. And alignment is more attractive than any technique you could memorize. If she respects you again, it won't be because you demanded it. It will be because your presence changed. If she walks away, it won't be a failure. It will be evidence that the connection required you to abandon yourself, and that was never sustainable. The real power of this move is not what it does to her. It's what it does to you. It teaches your mind that you are safe standing alone. And once a woman senses that, the dynamic can no longer stay the same. When you make this shift, something subtle but undeniable happens inside her. Her behavior becomes clearer. Not kinder overnight, not magically perfect, but clearer. And clarity is where truth lives. Respect doesn't hide behind mixed signals. Disrespect thrives in them. A woman who begins to respect you again will respond to your steadiness with adjustment. She becomes more attentive, more precise with her words. She checks herself before crossing lines she once ignored. Not because she's afraid of losing you, but because she senses that you are no longer bending yourself to keep the peace. Psychologically, this triggers a recalibration. She feels you as grounded, not grasping. And grounded men are easier to trust, even when they are firm. But there's another possible outcome, and this is where many men feel pain, and also where they grow. If she pulls away, tests harder, or disengages when you stop explaining, that reaction is information. It reveals that the connection was being held together by your self-abandonment, by your silence when you felt discomfort, by your willingness to stay small so the relationship could stay intact. And that is not respect. That is dependency disguised as intimacy. From a psychological standpoint, women do not respect men who fear being alone more than they respect themselves. That fear seeps into tone, posture, decision-making. It creates a subtle imbalance where she feels like the emotional authority and you feel like the applicant. When you remove that fear by choosing self-alignment over reassurance, the dynamic is forced to evolve or end. Both outcomes are healthy. This is where the mentor truth comes in, the one men were never supposed to hear. Respect is not maintained by holding on. It is maintained by being willing to let go. The willingness doesn't mean you want loss. It means you're no longer ruled by the terror of it. And that internal freedom changes how you speak, how you listen, and how you respond. You may notice something else as well. When you stop explaining, you hear yourself more clearly. You notice when something doesn't sit right. You notice when your body tightens, when your chest closes, when your intuition whispers, "This isn't aligned." And instead of overriding those signals, you honor them. That self-honoring is the foundation of masculine psychological stability. Women feel safer around men who trust themselves, not men who are loud or dominant, but men who are internally consistent. When your yes means yes and your no is calm and final, your presence becomes predictable in the best way. Predictability creates trust. Trust creates respect. Respect creates attraction that doesn't require effort. This is also why arguments decrease when respect returns. You no longer need to prove your point. You don't need her to agree in order to feel valid. Disagreements become moments of observation rather than battles for worth, and that emotional economy, where less energy is wasted on defense, is deeply attractive. If she stays, the relationship deepens on more honest ground. If she leaves, your nervous system eventually settles into something men rarely experience after a breakup: self-respect without bitterness. You don't feel used, you don't feel foolish, you feel intact. That's the quiet win no one talks about. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop fragmenting. And a man who is whole again is a man who commands respect, whether anyone else is watching or not. This is the final truth. And it's the one that separates men who repeat the same patterns from men whose lives actually change. Respect is not restored by getting her to act differently. It is restored the moment you refuse to act against yourself. Everything else is a side effect. Most men spend years trying to manage perception, how they're seen, how they're judged, how they're valued. But the deepest psychological shift happens when you stop managing perception and start managing alignment. Alignment between what you feel, what you allow, and what you choose. That alignment creates a quiet authority. And authority does not need permission. When a woman senses that you are no longer negotiating your self-worth, she experiences something primal, not fear, not loss, awareness. Awareness that the dynamic has changed, that the man in front of her is no longer orienting his behavior around her reactions. He is orienting around his values. That is the moment respect either returns or reveals it was never there. This is why this move works even when no one sees it, even when you say very little. Your tone changes, your pace slows, your decisions feel cleaner. You no longer rush to respond to emotional pressure. You no longer chase reassurance. And psychologically, that steadiness signals emotional maturity. Maturity is not perfection. It's self-regulation. It's knowing when to engage and when to step back without resentment. Here's what many men miss. This move doesn't harden you, it softens you in the right places. When you stop explaining yourself to earn respect, you become more honest, more present, less guarded, because you're no longer afraid of losing approval. You can listen without collapsing. You can care without clinging. You can love without disappearing. And that's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to be respected is the moment you become respectable. Because respect follows self-trust, not effort. It follows coherence, not sacrifice. It follows men who would rather be alone than betray their inner compass. That choice, once made, echoes through every relationship you touch. If you take nothing else from this, take this. You are not here to convince anyone of your value. Your value becomes obvious when you live as if it's non-negotiable, when your boundaries are quiet but firm, when your absence is possible, when your presence is intentional. Some men will hear this and nod and change nothing. Others will feel uncomfortable, defensive, exposed. That discomfort is the doorway. On the other side of it is a version of you that no longer wonders why respect keeps slipping away. Because it doesn't. It settles. It stays. Before you go, I want you to answer this honestly, for yourself and in the comments. Where in your life are you still explaining yourself to someone who has already shown you who they are? Write it down. Own it. If this spoke to you, like the video. Subscribe for more truths most men never hear. And share this with one man in your life who feels confused, unseen, or quietly disrespected. Because this may be the moment everything shifts for him.